today we have with us Eric and Anton, the co-founders of TBX4Life. So Anton, tell me, how did you get started with the whole thing?
Yeah, TBX4Life is the rare disease advocacy group, and the whole history actually of the whole story for me with this rare disease started when my son was diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension about 3 years ago. So, and the first thing which I started to do is kind of digging into the information. Fortunately, these days there is a lot of information which is just open to everybody to understand what the disease, how I can help him, how I can be sure that I do every single piece of actions, everything to increase his chances. So when I was studying these pulmonary hypertension aspects, in the parallel, there was a genetic test done, which actually revealed that my son carries genetic mutation, a specific gene, TBX4. That's why this initiative is named TBX4Life. And when I started to study about this TBX4 gene, I went to many publications, and then I spotted one of them actually, which was named TBX4 syndrome, right? So, and that spotted actually my attention, because I was thinking that, okay, so my son deals with different, things, pulmonology side, cardiology side, some skeletal side, and everybody treats that separately, kind of like all the other publications are kind of going through like pieces of that. While I was thinking I should not, as a patient, as a kind of caregiver for a patient, I should not go through multiple things around and trying to understand what my child has. And I thought, okay, so I probably need to do something with that. In parallel, I was looking for other families, and this was kind of relatively fast. I was able to find several of those, and I was thinking, okay, if we have several families affected all the world, can we maybe somehow help with this search? And that kind of fit one to another. So, and I decided to approach Eric, who was one of the authors of that publication.
So Eric, how was it when Anton approached you?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate to intermittently be approached by families by email or by telephone or whatnot with questions, and it was clear immediately that Anton had a level of insight, he had a level of interest, and a level of profound impact that it was worth not only having a discussion about the clinical situation, but what he was interested in, which is this really impressive desire to create advocacy, education, and also a scientific community around this gene. And so that struck a chord with me. I've long had an interest, like you, in the genetic variations that cause individuals to have different conditions, and whether they're syndromes or just isolated irregularities. And it was clear from the get-go that Anton was someone not only passionate, but was going to put the time and effort into it to make this a success. And I think, as you'll hear, and you probably already know, he's really just done a beautiful job in this manner.
Okay, so Anton met Eric. How was TBX4Life born? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that was a nice first conversation which we had together a couple of years back. But then we agreed that, okay, so we need to do something together, so that would be great. But nobody from us knew what to do next.
Okay.
Occasionally, just very kind of minimal time, like maybe a week or so after that, I just randomly got an invitation for the workshop from another organization, which is National Organization for Rare Diseases in the USA, which was actually exactly about that. So if you would like to start a rare advocacy group, that is what you need to do. So, and they were actually in 2 workshops, showing all the practices, all the aspects, actually how to start, putting together, your plan, right? So your vision, mission, team, fundraising, getting research ready, etc. So that was really right in time. And after that workshop, I again approached Eric and I said, so I have a plan. Let's get started. So it still took us a time actually to get to the scientific side, right?
So I want to know a little bit more about how did you get the scientific community involved, and Eric, you can speak to that, and And then Anton, I would like to know, how did you get families involved?
Well, the scientific community was remarkably easy, unbelievably so. It started by just calling people I knew, some scientists, some clinicians, and just saying, hey, we've got a group of people coming together, and at that point we didn't, but we sort of started to quickly have that, who were interested in this. And what's the beautiful thing is, about science and about medicine is that we do it because we love it or we're interested in it. And it sort of snowballed where fortunately a few people said yes, got on a call, we arranged another call, a few people said yes, and I was shocked, and I have been still shocked and so appreciative at the amount of interest and effort there's been across the community, not only in North America, but also in Europe, and now we have colleagues in Australia and in Asia. People just want to share their thoughts and work together to solve a problem. And I don't know if it could say TBX4 versus say PDF2 versus say BMPR2 versus say ABCD3. You're going to have people who are interested in working, and there's always groups of people who want to talk to each other and learn together. And it's been a real testament to the field and to science the way it's happened. I'm so appreciative and so shocked at the number of people. As you said, oh, this sounds really neat. I want to be a part of it. And you've been an unbelievable collaborator and contributor. And so it's just fostered a sense of collaboration together that I'm really honored to be part of and thrilled. And so that was the easy part. I think he had the hard part.
Yeah, Anton, tell us more.
Oh, yeah. So with respect to the community of affected families, right? So definitely this is genetic disorder. Genetics is a tough and sensitive area, honestly speaking.
And a very personal one too.
And very personal one, so it affects not only individuals but also families, across families, multiple generations. Some are comfortable to talk about, some are not. Some comfortable to make genetic testing, some are not. I'm a very open person, right? So I can freely talk about any kind of those things, but that's definitely not the case for everybody. So we still kind of go through some barriers. First of all, kind of like understanding what genetic disorder is, right? So I think that creates some boundaries and barriers for that. Another one thing, communication. So how to find those people? Because I cannot go, for example, to each and every clinician and say, okay, so now give me all those patients who are affected by TBX4. They cannot.
It's actually easier to find clinicians and scientists than patients because of the confidentiality.
To some extent, yes. So the good thing is that still patients, or affected patients, caregivers especially, so like we talk about primarily affected children. We also have adults in the community, but primarily those are affected children, because it's a typical scenario that the child is affected by PH, right? So then they get the reason why that PH, and then they start to search. We present in Facebook, yes, and we present actually in Facebook thanks to one of the community members in the past, because when I started to organize those families together, I'm not a fan of Facebook, right? So I'm not using Facebook every day. I use now because I can drive this TBX4Life, but before I was not doing that. And thankfully there was a person in our community who says, why don't we start just a little group? And she started a group. So, and that actually is how that started to spin up. So we had that like 8 members first, but then I realized, okay, so it's actually good to connect people together and start sharing some information, but also collect some experience, etc. Of course, Facebook not for everybody, but fortunately, at least in the USA, so in Europe, many people use Facebook, and this is how our community started to grow actually. So I started to bring people more and more into Facebook, and I also started other things like website. We launched a website a year ago. Now, when you search in Google, what TBX4 is, you have a chance to reach out to us. We're working now to make it a little bit more high in the search. So it's all about kind of like making more and more awareness about this syndrome, about this initiative, awareness through clinicians, awareness through media, awareness through any social connections. We have Twitter, Instagram, public pages, we have everything now. So it's growing. So I would say we had quite a substantial growth in the last year. So more and more people are identified. I think that I'm thankful also for the scientific kind of side. I feel that there is a support also, great support also from our scientific team, and they spread the word as well. So our current, for example, agreement already with many that if they identify families, okay, so they cannot tell me that go and connect to that family, but they can tell them go and connect to that initiative.
So is there a place on the website for families to connect, like for them to reach out and with that information directly come to you so that they can be part of the organization?
So practically we have multiple ways to connect, right? So we have Facebook group where they can just knock and say I want to join this group.
And so they would search TBX4Life, 4 is the number 4, TBX4Life.
They can search in Facebook. On Facebook, they can search the TBX4 and they will immediately find
Okay,
us.
excellent.
Yeah, so when we talk about just Google, there is the TBX4.org website, and this is where they can get the entry point, and there is just a button just on the front page, join our community, right?
Okay,
so and that leads
excellent.
actually to all the communications methods. We have email, we have whatever. So all the communications methods, it's pretty simple. But we are working right now also to create a flyer. We actually have already a flyer, and I hope that very soon I will be able actually to share that with all the clinicians in our team. They can give those flyers just to those people, and they will be just QR code there, click and connect.
Excellent. So we got together, we have now formed the community is growing. So where do you see TBX4Life? What is the mission for over the short term and the long term? What do both of you see as the growth of this community?
So what do we start with, realistic or with
We can have realistic and aspirational, both.
I think it's both. You're right. So realistically, we've got a number of working groups on the clinical and science side together, trying to answer questions about what is the broad nature of the TBX4 syndrome. Does it include individuals who may have just knee or pelvic irregularities? Does it also include people with lung disease? Does it include adults and children? We think all those things are true, but we want to really carefully describe that as a community. We're trying to bring the scientists together, as you well know, both from model organism systems, so that would mean something from using animal models to determine and understand the disease better versus using cell-based systems. Contributions from families, of course, who graciously share their biospecimens, which we're working toward trying to build a biological bank that people would graciously consent to approve and share their biospecimens, as well as their information about who they are and what we call clinical information. So what are their characteristics? So that's all not only aspirational, that's happening. We need to a launch, but we're close. I think our working groups together, as you know, being part of a community together where we try and work together. So there's lots of great labs, but can we, as you were saying to me earlier this evening, can we do things not only in writing papers together, but can we actually conduct experiments together across communities of scientists would be wonderful. And I think we're getting there, and we're going to be there soon. Some of it has to take money, so we're doing the best we can to try and fundraise. And I don't mean that case from the community, I mean from organizations that would provide us support, be it foundations or National Institute of Health or European-based organizations. So I think those are the short-term goals.
Right.
I mean, long-term scientifically, it's to solve what are the irregularities in the downstream consequences in the cells and in the person's body that result in them to have a condition that we would call TBX4 syndrome, and can we either prevent it from happening in people or treat it in people who already have it manifest. So that's both realistic and aspirational, I think.
Anton, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, definitely. I probably would add a little bit of also kind of like community patients' perspective to that, right?
Great.
So, realistic, let's say immediate goals, right? So we started with some, actually we received the first grant. I didn't tell you.
Yes,
right?
we should tell
We
you.
received the first grant of $2,700 for educational back, for knowledge back for the families. So one of the things which on the realistic side we now try to solve is to educate families as much as possible on what they deal with, especially those who are newly diagnosed, so that it will be extremely helpful for them. I went through that pain 2 years ago, kind of like trying to understand what I need to do or what I can do for my child. I hope that those people who are newly diagnosed, you know, let's say this year, next year, they will not have to go through that pain any longer. Another one thing, we would like to have better recommendations, right? So in our clinical work group currently works under that, fortunately. So we hope to have some guideline which says that, okay, so if you have this particular scenario, that particular disease in your child, this is how that should be probably best managed, this thing should be considered, this diagnosis should be made, this probably diagnosis also should be made for so-called relatives at risk, right? So like me, for example, right? So what should I do on a regular basis? So these recommendations can help definitely also not only kind of newly diagnosed, but also those who currently already dealing with that a few years, because there is no consensus on that. So every place is doing different things, and we struggle to understand what is right and what is wrong.
So having a concise, coherent list of recommendations with a lot of people's suggestions all compiled together.
Yeah.
So that.
So I mean, me as a person who works in, you know, this global environment for many years, I used to think that if we combine the knowledge of all the great people together, we create some new knowledge, right? So yeah, we hope that we will be able to get that new knowledge for practical use, so that every can go to their whatever, you know, local cardiologists, pulmonologists, and say, I'm sick with that, or my child is sick with that. So this is the guideline which was created by the best people who know what this disease is.
Yeah.
And aspirationally, just cure.
Yeah, let's cure it.
Yeah.
Just cure.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Thank you, both of you. I think this is a great example of bench to bedside and sort of bringing everybody in the community together to sort of get to the cure. And thank you to the community for being a part of this.
Thank you very much for this conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.